Forum Trajanum, a game by Stefan Feld, published by Stronghold games. Not the first game by Feld that I play with a ancient Roman theme. The other one was Trajan, and that had a Mancala kind of engine. This is a different beast, and it is a tough beast. This is not an easy game to teach or to learn. The plus side, it's fun to play. Have I already anticipated 3/4 of my conclusions? I might. For Trajanum, the players are governors, so different colonies of Rome. They have the little town that they're trying to build, but at the same time, they don't want to just remain provincial. They want to have influence in Rome. So as they build their town, they're also going to send envoys in Rome. To Rome. Mechanically speaking, that means that you're playing almost two separate games, or two interconnected games, as resources that you pick on one board, your local board, and you use them to construct stuff there, then also become game pieces that are placed on a separate board representing the Forum Romanum. Interesting idea there, but again, definitely something for committed players. Not because the game has a ton of rules, in fact the core engine is pretty simple, but there are a ton of icons. There are a lot of icons, unique effects, different benefits. I can tell you, when you place a token on that board there, you get the corresponding benefit. Oh, that's okay, great. However, there are 18 spaces with 18 different benefits, and we have to see them all before we move on to the next place where you can place a token and get one of those 15 benefits. So I've seen sadness, fear, and pain in the eyes of my fellow gamers as they taught them the game. However, also saw the big smiles and the joy at the end of the game. After they learned it, we went through the learning phase and we started playing it and we enjoyed the game. So I guess now anticipated 9/10 of my conclusions. So before I tell you everything, let me tell you something more about Forum Trajanum. For example, how it plays and how it works. The game takes place both on a general board that represents the Forum Romanum, and it has several other important elements, and then on a personal board. Each player has a personal board that looks more or less like this one at the beginning of the game, and this board represents each player's individual personal colonia. This is the place where you will place these tokens here at the beginning of the game. You place most of them face down in this grid, with the exception of the corners. You place these crane tokens randomly but face up during setup. As you can see, there are one of each of 4 colors, and then you also place the tokens on the cranes. They go face up. Everything else is face down. You see these temples, they are printed on the board already. You don't do anything in those spaces. You don't place tokens, you don't build there, nothing like that. The general idea is that during the game you will choose tokens from your personal board, you will pick them up, and then you will look at the advantages that they give you. They can give you different things, they can give you resources. This one, for example, gives you a brown meeple and a gray meeple, or they can be turned into citizens. So that means when you find one of these tokens and you decide to use it, you place it on the corresponding space in this area here. Each citizen will give you a different benefit immediately and will allow you to score extra points on the row in which the citizen is sitting when it comes to scoring the part of the game. There are other types of advantages. Here, for example, there is a ruler. This is a very interesting idea that will allow you to score, to determine how many points you score when we score certain functions in the game. But this ruler will move. So, for example, certain bonuses will give you the amount of points under which Trajan's head is. So a Trajan's head is in this area. When you score those bonuses, you score 5 points. If it is in this area here, you will score 7 points instead. So that's a very interesting idea. Other things to say, if you have a certain number of envoys in Rome next to each other, you have say 7, and your ruler is here, then you score 9 points. Those 7 people, if your scoring ruler is here, will only score you 4 points. So you will also want to use game effects to move that ruler there, and for example, the symbol here does precisely that. This token here will give you a gray builder and a move of the ruler on that track. So the general idea is that you will be collecting your own tokens. Sometimes you get them from the corners, so you know what you get. Other times, very often you get them from the face down pool, and so you just find out as you pick them up what you get. As you collect those tokens to collect resources, you will also empty spaces in which you will place buildings. There is a pool of buildings. These tiles are double-sided. They have a color building on one side and a gray building on the other side. You also have double buildings which may have two color buildings on one side and a color and a gray building on the other side. You may want to organize these tokens a little better than the way you see them here, and there are slots on the main board to do precisely so. But this is one of the elements of the general flow. Pick up stuff to collect resources and free spaces that then you will, where then later you will build. About how and why, what would you so? Now we're gonna look into those details there. Now, the game is divided in three phases. Each phase is determined by a deck of cards, and each phase is divided in a number of turns. You shuffle these cards and form 3 decks at the beginning of the game, and we'll see later what those other things do. Talking about the cards, at the beginning of each new turn, you draw 2 cards from the top of the topmost available deck, and you place those cards face up there so that everybody can see them. You look at the symbols, so we have this caped superhero here, and this chess piece. I know there's something else, but that's how I like to think of them. Now you look at your board, and you look at the symbols on the edges of your board. That will indicate rows and or columns on your board. For example, those 2 symbols, here is the element that looks like the Queen of Chess, and here is the caped superhero with a spear. Basically now, each player will need to select a token that is still face down, or face up is in the corner. Basically a resource token is still available from their board, one from the column and one from the row. And say here, for example, I decide to take this one, counting it as coming from this column here, and I decide that I want to use this one for whatever reason. Now I look at them, I look at those tokens that I just picked up, and then, well, everybody's doing this at the same time, so those cards I showed you earlier simply determine where the players have to take their tokens from. You may be able during the game to collect tribunes. They're represented by this game piece here. You can spend a tribune to ignore one of those 2 symbols, one for each tribune that you spend, and so instead of getting from the row or column indicated there, you can take it from wherever you want. But suppose, well, from your own colonia. But suppose that I'm happy with what I got. Now I look at my tokens, so one I keep and I place here in this area, and one actually give to the next player to the right, and drafting style, and I receive a token from the player to my left. And suppose I received this one. That's not correct because it's still mine, but imagine there is the back of another color because this is coming from another player. So everybody selects 2 tokens, so pass one, take one, and then in players order, in turns order, players will do 2 things. First, they will use one of the tokens, collecting the associated resources. If, for example, I want to get a tribune and I want to get a light blue meeple, and we have a nice pool of colored meeples there. So everybody uses their token doing whatever it is that it says. Here I could get a brown one and one of any color. Here I could get a merchant. That means I place the token there and I activate that citizen and I receive the associated benefit. There are a lot of icons that you need to become familiar with all these benefits. Also, once you spend a token to collect this resource, you place it face down here in this area where you see that ship. That represents the harbor that your envoys used to start their adventurous trip to go to Rome. Collect the resources, and then you do a building action. Basically, you will be spending your resources to build a building in one of the empty spaces. If you want to build a single color building, then you spend 1 meeple of that color. If you want to build a gray building, remember these ones, as you can see, there are different types with different symbols. If I want to build a gray building, then I need to spend a gray builder, and that's what I do. I could also choose to trade 2 color meeples of the same color, any color, for a gray builder. I could also choose to use a brown worker together with a meeple of any color to use it as another color meeple of another color. Basically, the brown turns another color meeple into a wild. And this is how I build things. So this is for the single buildings. So if I am building double buildings, then I simply have to pay the cost that I told you twice. For this one, I need to pay the cost to build a yellow building and a gray building, and you need to have enough room here on the board to do it. What are the benefits for building these things? If I build a gray building, then we go back to the main board. As you can see, there are different tracks here, and they're associated to the gray buildings. When I build a gray building, I advance my marker by 1 space on that track, on the corresponding track, that one for this one, and I gain the associated benefit. Here I got a tribune and a meeple of any color. Gray meeple, other benefits that I'll tell you later, and so on and so forth. Once you are done here, then and you could advance again, then you advance, then you place your token here on this space here instead. We're looking at those numbers. Now, basically, now you got the general flow of the game, which is after we draw 2 cards, everybody passes around a token, uses 1 token, takes 1 building action, you will start the new round with 2 new cards, and so on and so forth, until this deck is exhausted. Then, before you start the new one, you take this game piece here, and you put it on top of this one. That's showing a 3. Now, after we put the game piece there, the only visible number is a 2. We continue like this until this deck is depleted, and now, in order to take this one here, we place it here. Basically, the number that is visible on top of the column is the number of points that you score when you score certain things in the game. So certain things in the game are more profitable earlier in the game and not so much later, because they were 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point respectively. So one big thing of building gray buildings is you collect resources on these tracks right away. When you build color buildings, you get to send an envoy from your harbor, if you have anybody there, which maybe you don't. You get an envoy from your harbor and you send it to Rome. You send it to the forum that basically you form by using these tiles here. You can shuffle them, change orientation, so the forum will change every time. And you had to send the envoy to a space of the same color as the building that you just built. So in this case, say red. And I place my envoy on any red, unless somebody has already started a red space, and that may be me. Suppose, in fact, that I'm sending an envoy to a red space now, I have to put it in a red area that has already been started, if in fact this is the case. If somebody has already started a red area, I need to keep sending people there. Suppose I just built a blue building. Hooray, then I can send anybody to any blue space because I can, because no one has started a blue space yet. One of the advantages that you can get is the ability to place envoys on an eagle token, on an eagle area, which usually you wouldn't be able to. Suppose I get that one, then I put it there. What you're trying to do is to build as large a blob of envoys as you possibly can in the forum. They will count as adjacent to one another only orthogonally, but you'll get to score the largest group that you have. And so basically this is the general idea. As the game progresses, you will get to score different things, especially at the end of each era, which means when each of those decks is depleted. When we get to do that scoring, what we score is, if a crane is visible, you get to score 3 points for each building of the same color that is visible. In this case, for example, 9 points for red, because I also have the red crane here. But you can use the cranes to score only once, so after I score it, I flip it face down. Then we look at the number of unique gray buildings that we have in each row, and we score 1 point for each of them. If I don't have any citizen in that row, that's it, 1 point per gray building. This row here, for example, would be worth only 1 point, 1 gray building there. If I have a citizen in that row, then I double the value, and if I have 2 of them, I triple it. So now this single individual building here would be 3 points. Oh, look at that. I have 6 points because those are unique buildings. And here, let's see if you're paying attention. How many points do I have now for this row here? Yep, still 6 because it's unique buildings. Good job, you weren't fooled by my devious trick there. Then also we get to score other things. Next to each era we place a card during setup. Each card comes from a small deck, so then in each game you will have different cards that are visible there. Basically these are different things that you can score, and they can give you bonus points based on the head of Trajan, on that ruler there. And that means that in different games you'll be scoring different things, so replay value there. Then you score the largest blob of envoys that you have in Rome, again the largest contiguous group that you have in Rome, and the number of points that you score for that is, well, you look at where your ruler is, you look at the number indicating your largest blob, say I have 4 envoys next to each other, then on the ruler here it says 4. Basically, on the ruler I look for the number representing my blob of envoys, and the number underneath that is the actual number of points that I score. Hooray, I just scored 4 victory points. There are a couple of other rules. For example, yes, you also need coins during scoring. You need to spend a coin for each line in which you have citizens, otherwise these lazy patricians will become inactive. You turn them face down, you cannot use them for scoring, you cannot use them for anything, so you also need to find tiles that will give you coins. And again, 1 per column, a single coin will satisfy 1 or 2 citizens that are there. There are other ways of scoring, there are other rules, but this is pretty much the general idea, which is collect tokens, build buildings, send people to realms, collect resources, create money engines, resource engines, victory point engines, because at the end of the last round, when this deck is depleted, the player with the most victory points will be the winner of the game. So thank you for watching. Since in any case I told you pretty much everything, or almost everything of my conclusions in the introduction, I'll summarize here. In case you skipped those, you just went onto the link for the conclusions, which is perfectly fine. This is a game that is not for the casual gamer or for the faint of the heart, or for somebody, I don't know, who their parents were killed by icons and now they're traumatized, they can't really deal with icons. There are a lot of icons, unique effects that you have to learn, you have to deal with. There's no other way found than to go through all of them with your players, and they will look a little bit scared, and you kind of just keep reminding them. But remember, the core engine is super simple. Pick up 2 tiles based on the cards that came out, keep 1, pass 1 around, spend 1, get whatever resources it gives you, and build a building. And then from time to time you will also send an envoy to Rome, try to put them next to each other. This is the game. This is the game, but of course every time you put a citizen, you choose a citizen, or you choose which great building you want to place, then that will give you a different benefit, and you need to be familiar with all of those icons. Mind you, I myself don't know everything yet. For example, the special cards that allow you to score at the end of each of the ages, I haven't even looked at all of them because I was already overloaded as it was. I just do those cards, learn those, then we play again, 3 new cards, learn about those specifically, and so there's some that I just haven't even seen or saw and I forgot. So, lots of different icons, and we also had a case at some point where halfway through an age, some players like, wait a second, I was building to score that configuration on the card. I may have misread it, and so that, of course, was a disadvantage. You have to be prepared for that. But if you're able to deal with all that information that needs to be memorized, then it's a really fun game. Again, for the committed player. Because you can go through the motions and play not that bad. I mean, you're always going to do something. You're also going to build buildings. It's not that hard. You're going to score some points. Hey, hooray. But the fun, of course, is when you're able to do multiple service with a single trick. That is by picking up a tile, you're emptying a location where you want to build something because it will allow you to score on the lines or some of those special tasks. Also turns out that will allow you to get a benefit and turns into an envoy that now you're sending to Rome. Maybe you're placing them in a specific location because of something else that you did, or able to score differently because of that. So by the simple action of taking a tile, pass one around, build a building in your town, you're able to do multiple things, then you're playing well, but most importantly, you are having satisfaction. It's a tough puzzle. It's a tough puzzle to crack. It's not hard to do okay. But when you're able in a single move to increase your scoring opportunities and improve your chances on the board in the forum, that could be good too. Is it a multiplayer solo? On one hand, you may have the temptation to think so. What happens in your colony pretty much is, because when I am looking at my tiles, chances are I'm not aware what you're doing at the level that I'm giving you a tile that's not gonna be useful to you. Because then, especially by doing that, I'm not getting the one that I need since resources are so tight. Potentially you could do so, but it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen when it comes to the tiles that you have. The game, however, becomes a lot more confrontational and can become a little bit like elbowing each other and getting each other's way when it comes to the forum. Then it is entirely possible to use some game effects to ban some of the rules and then to put someone on the forum to block another player from expanding. In particular, if a player was forced to have 2 separate groups, and if they can connect and not this one large group that will score a lot, then you maybe figure out a way of putting somebody there in between. They cannot connect them. Now the largest group is 5 instead of, say, if they connected the 5 and 5, maybe 2 was 12. That's a huge difference. Then that becomes more confrontational. You can definitely get in the way of other players, so you can get a little bit, take that slash, again, confrontational cutthroats. Maybe that's too much. And player may actually struggle to do so, like, well, I like to block that group there in the forum, but in order to do so, I need to do these other kind of things. So it's possible. It has a confrontational element at the same time. Doesn't have to. It's entirely possible players just play it as a separate race. The drafting, giving things to other people, I don't know that really adds all that much, frankly, because in most cases I find myself using the tile that I selected for myself. Yes, it may happen. Oh, the one you gave me is vastly better. But chances are that I have a plan in mind. This definitely is a game that is a lot more about planning in the long run than just about tactical opportunities. And so it may happen, but I think that if the game was you pick up 2 tiles, you keep one and discard one, more or less you may have almost the same. Again, there's an extra element in case something fun and unexpected happens with the tiles that are passed around. But to me that was not the heart of the game, not something that made the game any better. Didn't worsen it either, mind you. Because the game is strong. It is a strong game that is gonna be frustrating to play the first turn or two as people are familiarizing with all these things. Then after they know all the icons, they have to figure out how to use them effectively. But when everything clicks, then it is a game that has a lot to offer. It gives you a nice mental workout, but not to the point of feeling exhausting. It is a medium high core, but not entirely hardcore. Again, a good workout, but not to the point of becoming painful as other games do. It's intellectually satisfying. It's fun to see all these mechanics interacting. The components are quite nice. One element, however, about the components in production, it's a pain in the neck to set up, no doubt. At least in my case, because I like to set up the games for game night in the afternoon, so the friends come over, the game is set up, I can just teach it and we play. But setting up for those colonies, so that was not fun. If you're playing it and setting it up together with your friends, of course, that reduces the pain. Still, it is quite a production. That definitely are a lot of components that you need to place where they need to be. But ultimately the design is a very strong one, intellectually satisfying, nice, fun set of problems, challenges, planning is key, and when it works, it's satisfying. Also, the game turned out to be much more balanced than we expected. Some people were able to score a lot early on, and we thought, oh, runaway leader. But then ultimately the games ended up being fairly close to in scoring. So 4 on Trajanum, really fun, really strong design, although it can be a little scary at the beginning.